welcome back to Stone Cell Homestead. I'm Kim, and thanks for joining me today. Today we are working on some meal prep in the kitchen. We will be making several meals that are grab-and-go meals for my husband or myself, and again, just for small meals. Often we see meal prep for large families. Well, we're not a large family, but yet we still like to have these grab-and-go items, but we don't want to eat the same thing for 5 or 6 days. And it's okay to do that. We've done that. But I would like to have a variety of meals in the freezer for us. So today I'm going to start off with the breakfast item, baked oatmeal. Working on that today. And it is a different recipe than I've ever done. I am making this one, it's more cake-like. It is one that I've used in the past. We love it. It's just not my traditional baked oatmeal. And we do, like I said, we really enjoy it. And you can add some variations. I won't be altering much from the recipe, but I will definitely tag it down in the description. The next thing that we'll be making is orange chicken. And orange chicken, I found this recipe on Pinterest. It is a copycat from Panda Express. It will be bare chicken because I do not like breaded things or flour. I cannot eat much gluten. So I try to avoid that at every chance I get. So I'll be making this orange chicken without that flour. The next thing I'll be making is black beans. This recipe comes from my daughter-in-law, Angie. This is her and my son's favorite black bean recipe. I'll be using that today. And the rest of those black beans that I get out of that jar, I'm gonna be using to make Cowboy Caviar. Many names on the internet for this. I'm sure you saw it before, but I will be doing that with the remainder of that jar of beans. The canned black beans are coming again from my pantry that I canned earlier this summer. The last thing I'll be doing is baked macaroni and cheese. It's got a variety of cheeses in it. My niece's favorite, we love it as well. And you're thinking, oh, that has, gluten in it? Nope, sure doesn't. I'm using my tinkiata macaroni, so it is gluten-free as well. The last thing I would like to do, which I don't believe I'm gonna make it, but we'll see how the day flows, is canned chicken legs. If I don't get to it, I will do it in another video. So I will do the canned chicken legs at a later time if I run out of time today. So come along, join us, and we will get started. So before I get started on my videos, I just wanted to share with you what my son's mother-in-law, suegra, made for us today, made me today. I love pozole, and she made this for me and sent it home with me after church. It is delicious. Okay, we are gonna start with the baked oatmeal so that can bake in the oven while I'm doing the other items. So the first thing we need to do is add 1 cup of vegetable oil. I do not use vegetable oil. I use applesauce instead. So I am using my canned applesauce. And it's equal measure. So I'm using 1 cup of my canned applesauce. Then I need to add 1.5 cups of sugar. And since my applesauce is unsweetened, I'm not worried about getting too much sugar. So, but it does have cinnamon in it. And I'm gonna add, it calls for 1.5 cups. And let's see here. And this is organic cane sugar from Azure. So I do cut back just a little bit, but it does call for 1.5 cups. So I just shy of 1.5 cups is what I use. And then I need 4 eggs. There's my timer for my oven. And these are store-bought eggs. So I always have been in the habit of cracking my eggs in a bowl because you just never know. You know, I've had bad eggs from the farm or from the chicken house, as well as bad eggs from the store. So I always try to break them in a separate bowl just so I can make sure they're good before I dump them in the bowl, because I don't want to ruin a batch of ingredients. So this morning when I got up, some of you won't find this funny. I did not find it funny by any means. However, it was an interesting way to wake up this morning. I walk out of my bedroom and there sits a kitten. We have new kittens on the floor right in the middle of the hallway, and it's dark and I can't see her quite well, but she's not moving her hind legs, so I'm thinking something is wrong with her. She's a brand new kitten. I'm thinking, oh no, something is wrong. She's walking like she's had like a stroke or something. So I was pretty upset, and I picked her up, and just as I picked her up, I realized that I want to let you know, we live out in the country. We live surrounded by fields. But when I picked her up, I realized she had a sticky mouse trap stuck to her hind legs. Okay, I need to stir this real quick. And I'm going to blend this till it's all glossy. You want to mix these things together until this is nice and glossy. There we go. So anyway, back to the kitty story. So I'm concerned, I'm not quite sure what to do. I pick her up, she's got this sticky mouse trap stuck to her hind legs. I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? So I pull this trap off of her. I do get it off of her, and I wonder, and I set her back down. Well, now she's stuck to the floor because the sticky trap is all over her hind legs and she can't lift her hind legs. They're sticking to the floor. So I'm not sure quite what to do. I'm thinking, well, how do you get this off? So I race to the phone, to the Google. How do I get this off of her? We're adding 6 cups of oats to this. There's 4. I think I have 6 more here, or a little bit more. This is a 2-cup measuring cup from Azure Standard. I am using my gluten-free oats. And I discovered that when an animal gets trapped or caught in a sticky trap, that it can be taken off with peanut butter, olive oil, vegetable oil, mineral oil, whatever you have. But I don't have vegetable oil, but I did have olive oil. So I grabbed the olive oil, dipped both of her hind legs in it, and it came right off. I got the stickiness off. She's got some matted fur from it, but she's okay. And what an experience. Could not believe it this morning. Was not how I wanted to start my morning off, but it ended up okay. So I've just added 6 cups of quick cooking oats. You don't want instant oatmeal. You want quick oats. But you can use rolled oats, which I have also used. I have both. So just want you to know you can do that, but the recipe does call for quick cooking oats, but I have used rolled oats. These are definitely quick cooking oats. The next thing we need to add is 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of baking powder. going to find my measuring spoons. Actually, 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon is 4 teaspoons. So we'll add this. And again, this is baking powder. Put that in there. And then we have 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm using Redmond's real salt. And by the way, the baking powder I used is aluminum free, the Rumford brand. You can get it through Azure Standard as well. And this is Redmond's real salt. I ordered it directly from Redmond's, but you can also get that on Azure Standard. And my link is included down in the description. What it does is it allows you to get your groceries or your bulk items or one item, whatever you like, your groceries that are very high quality. The Azure Standard has an amazing following, and I'm just here to tell you, you will not be disappointed. They stand by their product, and if you do have a problem, they make it right immediately, and it's never been an issue. I've only ever had one thing that I've had to call them for, and they fixed it, refunded my money. Even though I received the item, they still refunded my money. Sometimes they may ask you to take pictures of it. Now we're adding 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Sorry, I got squirrel moments everywhere today. And I am gonna mix some of these dry ingredients up just a little bit to spread that baking powder out. And now I need to add 2 cups of milk. This baked oatmeal is definitely cake-like. I just want you to be aware of that. It's not like the one from Acre Homestead that Becky makes. I've made hers, and again, that is phenomenal as well. This is more cake-like. So if you're looking for something that compares to Becky's, use Becky's. That recipe is by far one of the better fruit included oatmeals. This one, you can add fruit to it, like apples. And I do have a couple apples, which I could put in here, and I would like, it's very easy. You chop up apples and you just add 2 cups of peeled apples to it. But I am not going to do that today. I eat fresh apples, so I'm going to take fresh apples to work. This is for just to have baked oatmeal that I can take to work and put in the freezer. So now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to pour it in a 9x13 pan that has been greased. And I'm just going to spray it with my olive oil. Bring this pan over so you can see what I'm doing. Put this here. We are going to pour that right in. Oops, sorry about that. We're going to pour that right into this pan. And that's all there is to it. This recipe, like I said, is a great freezer meal if you want it to be. I bake it, I package it, and then I can just grab a square out of the freezer. And then by the time I get ready to eat it at work, it is thawed. I warm it up in the microwave. You can put whatever you need over it. So this is ready to go. Now, the one thing that I do like about this recipe, not only is it cake-like, but it's very healthy because I didn't use oil, which that's your preference. I use applesauce, which is mine. The gluten-free oats that I use, it's got eggs, it's got all these ingredients that we know what we're putting into it. I got my organic cane sugar, my organic oats. So just be thinking about that. Yeah, you could do instant oatmeal, but these have no preservatives. This is just how we like to make this. It's a quick, easy meal. And here is the recipe if you want the print of it. And it is from Camp Amigo. This is their recipe that they use at their camps. I think originally I said Camp Mac, but I was incorrect. It's Camp Amigo baked oatmeal. And I'm gonna bake that for 40 minutes in a 9x13 pan at 400 degrees. Okay, and here we start with the next recipe, and this is black beans. So the first thing we need, this is a recipe that my son and daughter-in-law both really enjoy, and they share this recipe with me, and trying it for the first time, but they say they absolutely love it, so I trust that probably use half of it. They have some good taste, and just about everything that Angie and Cody make is really good. Her mom, Angie's mom, made the pozole that was at the beginning of the video. So I'm sure it's fabulous. So what I'm doing here is I am taking a half of an onion, and I will be cutting that up and dicing it up. These onions are from Azure Standard, I believe. I did not have good luck with my onions in my garden. They just never developed to the nice size like I have in like they have in the past. So I am not sure what happened there. I had a couple items this year that just didn't produce the way they have in the past. And as we all know, we have good years and bad years. So it's always good to plan for a year that you have bad year, and which I did. I have some in the freezer, and I do have little onions that I've diced up, but I want to use fresh for this recipe. So here I am just dicing it up with my vegetable knife, my Cutco knife, and it makes quick work of this. I really enjoy it. Now this recipe is definitely a side dish if you're not into eating just beans as a meal. But I can eat this dish just as a meal, and I discovered that after I made this dish that it was going to be just fine as a meal. But it would be great as a side dish for burgers, or a or a pulled pork sandwich, or pulled pork, or whatever side dish meat, a steak, whatever you like. But it is really good. Now I'm adding a jalapeno pepper here. So and #Peppergate. I was very disappointed with my garden this year. I purchased seeds and plants. The problem was, and both locations ended up in the Peppergate scandal, which is #Peppergate. So I ended up you can look it up and see what everybody else had the same problem I did. We purchased seeds or plants from garden greenhouses or from places that sold seeds, and discovered that when the plants grew and started producing, we did not have the plants that we thought. I should have had jalapenos and I should have had salsa peppers. Neither one of them ended up being those items. That were unable to I ended up with a ton of banana peppers. I'm sure someone in the background is laughing about this big mistake. I'm not laughing. I needed those salsa peppers, and I needed these jalapeno peppers for my fall harvest when I started making salsa. And my daughter-in-law, her mom is and cowboy candy and things like that. So if you're part of the Peppergate scandal, please tell me in the description or give me a thumbs up to let me know you were part of that, and that you received seeds and pepper plants that were not what you expected. Nice and small. In this recipe, I should not have seeded this jalapeno. I am dicing it. It needed more heat, and I should have added the second jalapeno. I debated it, and I know that would have been much better because we do like some heat.
So here I am dicing it. I'm finishing up, just making it nice and small for this recipe. Once these are all diced up, I'm going to add them to a hot cast iron skillet. And we will be frying them up or sauteing them and getting them soft for the recipe. And now I've added oil to my cast iron. I'm bringing that up to heat. And I will heat it up until that oil just starts to smoke, and then I know it's hot enough. It does take a little bit sometimes for cast iron to get warm, and so we're just waiting it out here for a little bit to add those next items. And here we begin adding, I see the smoke coming off that oil. I'm going to start by adding the jalapenos and the onions using my whetstone woodenware to scrape off that knife. I just don't want to cut myself. So I always try to be a little bit cautious. And here I am adding the rest of those onions and jalapenos. And they are frying up nice. They're starting to sizzle.
Or tender.
And I just give them a nice stir.
Turn down the heat right away.
And I'm going to saute these until they become soft. And once these are soft and begin to caramelize, we'll be adding those tomatoes that are sitting there in the background. And I just saw that I picked out a piece of onion that still had too much of the core of the onion. I must have missed that when I was dicing, but that's okay. We got it out of there. Don't need that. These are the water's coming out of these nicely. It's looking good. And they are coloring nicely. They're really frying up nicely, starting to caramelize. And I'm going to dice up some of these big pieces of tomato. And these tomatoes were out of my garden. I did not put them in the freezer. They're just ends and pieces that I was going to use in a salad, and I didn't end up using them. So I'm just going to dice them up for this recipe and then throw them in. And the onions now are nicely caramelized, and I'm adding those tomatoes. And I will give them a nice stir, and again, just get them all mixed up. At this point, I still have not yet added salt. I wait till the very end to do that. I just want to get all these flavors together. Some people would have probably added salt to get the water to come out of those onions, and I'm fine with that. So these beans I will be adding next. These I did not rinse or drain, and I'm using my lid key here, to pry off that lid without bending that lid. And I'm only going to use half this jar. A full recipe would be 2 cans of black beans. These are my home canned black beans that I did earlier this year.
Does not drain.
I have a video of that as well.
The beans for
and I'm just going to scrape out half this jar, because you see in another recipe later on, I will be using the rest of these beans for Cowboy Caviar.
And then the other half a jar that I'm
so 1/4 of these beans will do 2 of my recipes for my husband and I. So I'm going to scrape off that spoon, and then I'm going to give these a nice mix, and we are going to heat these until they are heated through. Now, when I showed this recipe, or the final dish, to my son and daughter-in-law, they said it looked a little bit more soupy than what theirs are. And I believe it's probably my home canned beans that did that. I could have rinsed them, which I probably should in hindsight from here on out. But it was still a very good dish. I really enjoyed it, and the soupiness did not bother me. The texture didn't bother me, nothing like that. And some people would be put off by that, the way it looked. It takes a lot for me to turn my head away from good food. So maybe you're that way too. It just takes a lot. If it tastes good, smells good, I'm eating it. Sometimes I have to close my eyes to eat it. I learned that on one trip when we made to Iceland when I ate a piece of filet. There I am adding salt now. I'm adding Redmond's real salt, and I used a teaspoon measuring spoon, but I didn't use but half of it.
I just wanted to show you how much.
And the reason I did that was just so you could see how much I actually added.
We will let this continue.
It depends on your taste buds. Add what you will. A half a teaspoon was good for me. What I said previously is I should have had more heat. I needed more spice in this. And here we start with Cowboy Caviar. I'm just going to voice over on this so you can hear me better. I'm adding a partial can of corn. I am going to half this recipe. I don't need that full recipe from Scratch Pantry, Becky at Acre Homestead. So I'm just making a half batch. So you will see my ingredients a little bit different. So I've already put in 6 ounces of corn, 1 can of drained and rinsed black beans. And here you see me cutting up my grape tomatoes. I'm using 6 ounces, maybe a little bit more than that, but I'm slicing them in half for this recipe. You also will see the next item is calling for a half of a red onion. For the full recipe, I'm only going to end up using a quarter of an onion. I wish I had the red onion as it really makes it look pretty, and I love the taste of red onion. And I'm going to grab it, and you'll see here it's quite a large onion, so I do end up making it a half or a quarter of that half onion. And once I get that all diced, then I will work on a jalapeno. What I should have done for this recipe is left the seeds in. I only used 1 jalapeno diced, and I need a little bit more heat for it. I would suggest if you like heat, just leave seeds in. The other thing I'm missing from this recipe, which I didn't realize, was avocados. I thought I had one in the refrigerator. I did not, so that was being omitted this time. I will link the recipe down below. And again, the best place to go to get this is Acre Homestead, scratchpantry.com. for Cowboy Caviar. And this is similar to Becky's recipe, and I want to give her credit where credit is due. She introduced this recipe on one of her videos, and we ended up absolutely loving it. And here you see I have just chopped up the jalapeno and trying to mix and get everything together. The other item I will be doing next is my bunch of green onions. It says a whole bunch for the full recipe, and again, we are having this recipe, so I'm only using 3 green onions. I absolutely love the flavor of green onions. Not everyone does, but since, again, it's just for us here at the house, my husband and I, we love the fresh tasting of the green onions. And these green onions are absolutely beautiful this year, so I'm really happy about this. My cilantro, which just did not do well this year. I don't know what it was. I don't know what happened. I just didn't end up with good cilantro this year. I don't know if it was the heat in the early summer. It bolted. I always have trouble with my cilantro bolting. And so I did end up having to buy the cilantro for this recipe. And as I'm talking here, I'm telling you, don't scrape your product off the cutting board with the blade towards you. Use the dull side so you don't hurt yourself and inadvertently cut your hand. And now you see I am getting my bunch of cilantro, and I am just rough chopping it to begin with. And once I get it rough chopped, then I come back in and get it chopped pretty fine for this recipe. This knife is one of my favorite knives. It is a vegetable knife from Cutco, and of course all my Cutco information is down below. I am not affiliated with Cutco. I'm just letting you know what I use. I always try to have the right tools, and there are many different kinds of knives people absolutely love, and these were just an investment for us, and just love the knives. So there's my infomercial there, even though I'm not affiliated or being sponsored. So as I'm getting the rest of the cilantro into the bowl, and I'm going to be getting ready and giving that a nice mix here. We need to make the dressing here coming up next, and so I'll get started on that. And here it is. I gave it a good stir, and now we're going to make the dressing. The dressing starts off with 1.5 tablespoons of honey.
But I will tell you what.
And I'm using this honey. It is raw organic honey. And I'm using up the smaller bottle before I get into my next jar. I'm just rotating stock at this point.
The juice of 1.5 lemons.
And any honey will do.
The full recipe is 3 lemons juice.
Pick out your favorite and add it in.
So
the next item I need to get is lemon juice. I use the Santa Cruz lemon juice. You're going to see that right here. I get this from Azure Standard. And it is real lemon juice. It is not from concentrate. It is organic. I absolutely love this. I don't have to sit there and squeeze lemons. Granted, fresh lemons are amazing, but this is a convenience item, and because I don't use a lot of lemons all the time, and I have an overabundance of this through canning season, I'm going to be using this. So the juice of 1.5 lemons. Then I need 1/8 of a cup of olive oil. And you see me getting this right here, 1/8 of a cup. And remember, this recipe is being halved. I'm not using the full recipe. The next item is 2 cloves of garlic minced. It calls for 3 cloves. However, I only end up using 2. I'm using 1 teaspoon of cumin here. I just added 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika.
1/4 teaspoon
and then
dried
you will see
oregano.
me adding 1/4 of a teaspoon of dried oregano. It is a whole oregano, and so I'm grinding it up in my hands and just throwing it in there.
1/4 teaspoon.
Then it calls for crushed red pepper flakes, and I do end up using 1/4 teaspoon, and then of course salt and pepper.
And I need
And I believe at this point I realize I may have forgot my garlic, and I'm working on getting that in there. There we go. There went my garlic. So I'm giving that a good mix. And once I get that nice and mixed, I will be pouring that over the ingredients.
Calls for some salt and pepper. I don't think I'm going to add.
And it looks like
the pepper until I taste it.
I
We
am
got enough in there right now.
adding my
Adding
salt
a
there.
pinch of salt,
And there's the
since
salt.
I've
I
cut
knew
back so
I
much
had
on
forgot
it.
something else, and so I went and reached for
This
my Redmond's
is
Real
the
Salt
dressing.
from Azure
And now
Standard.
we're
Going to pour that over here right now and give everything a good mix, and then that recipe is done and ready to go. And again, this is just such an amazing fresh recipe that we absolutely love, and
or
I use it
I'm going to call it a
for
salad
just eating,
because I will
or
eat it
I
just
can
as
eat it
is.
with
I could use
chips,
it in chips
and use it
but this will
as
be
a type
again,
of
fresh
salsa,
salad.
if you will. But this is
there
an absolutely amazing
get started
side
on
dish.
the next recipe.
And the next recipe is orange chicken. And this comes from Pinterest. And it is a Panda Express copycat orange chicken recipe. I saw this on Adeline Zook YouTube channel, and she was doing naked chicken. I cannot eat a lot of breaded things with flour. I do have a gluten intolerance, so I avoid gluten as much as I can. On occasion, I can have small amounts, which I am fortunate compared to most. But this recipe is where I found that I just really, really wanted to try this. So here you see me cutting up chicken. I start with a knife I should not have started with. You always need the correct tools for the job. And I start off dicing up this chicken into 1-inch pieces. Some of them are a little bit bigger than 1 inch, but I'm fine with that. And here I'm just struggling with my chicken. So I quickly figure out I need a different tool. And so now you see I have a better knife for cutting this meat, and I am much happier
Better knife, as you
with
see.
the progress. This meat I got on sale down in Amboy, Indiana, and it was like $1.89 a pound. That was within the last 12 months.
There was only 4 breasts
After I
in this
purchased
package,
this meat,
and these are
now
some
the
big
price is
chicken
$2.49 a
breasts.
pound.
I am just
Things are
amazed at how big these
expensive.
things
They're
are.
getting higher
I got
priced in the
these
stores. I'm
in
not here
bulk
to
at
use any
a
scare
place down in
tactics.
Amboy,
I'm just
Indiana.
saying, if you see a good sale,
drove a
pick
bit
it up,
to get
put it
them,
in your freezer,
But it was
figure
well
out
worth
how
it. I
to
got them when it was
process it, whether it be
$1.49
canned chicken, which I have a video as well
a
that I do
pound, I
that,
believe, and that
or
wasn't
freeze
too long
it,
ago. It might
or
have been
make
$1.89
freezer
a pound.
meals.
It wasn't many
There's
more than
just
that.
options out there
But,
for you.
yeah,
Here you see
I
me
got these
trimming
down in Amboy,
that
Indiana,
fat and
and-
skin excess
it
off.
was-
I
it
don't
was
want that
within the
in my
past
final
12 months,
product, so
if
I
that tells you
am
anything.
cleaning the
Actually,
chicken as I
it
go
was
here.
snow on the ground. I believe it was March. Okay,
And
just a
here we
reminder, I
get
am not
going
going to be
on
dredging
frying
this
up the chicken. And just a reminder, I'm
into
not
any
going to be
kind of,
dredging this chicken in
flour
the egg
mixture.
and
I'm just
flour
going to fry it up in
cornstarch
my
mixture.
skillet.
That
So
is on
I'm
the
going to
original
add
recipe. I will
some
link
oil
that
here.
down in the description.
Probably a couple
Here I'm adding a couple tablespoons of olive
once that
oil,
heats
and we're
up,
going to get that heated up
will
here in the
start
skillet.
frying my
This skillet is from Pampered Chef. Someone has asked me in the past if this was diamond clad. I believe it is. I really don't know.
mixed up. You can
But
see
the
over
brand
here
is Pampered
is
Chef,
that
and I
bean.
did get it from Pampered Chef. It is
beans
linked
that
down
my
in the
daughter-in-law
description. I
makes,
love
and those are done.
this
I'm
skillet.
just gonna taste
It is
those.
amazing. Oh, here you see me. I just can't take it
tastes like
anymore.
if
I'm
you
going to
need more
try
salt.
those beans that I made earlier. And They need more heat,
Very
is what
good.
I've decided. The salt, the seasonings were amazing. They
use more
tasted great,
heat.
but I needed
So
more
I probably
jalapeno
should
pepper.
not have
I
seeded
would
my
never
jalapeno.
take out the
They
seeds
definitely need more
on my
heat,
next
but they are
recipe.
very good.
I just feel
Nice
it
and
needed more
seasoned
heat.
otherwise.
We
So, anyway,
like
back
some
to the
spice. I like to be able to taste it. So
Oil
that is
all
just
over.
my take on that recipe.
And we're just going to slowly start
And I believe the oil is just about up to
adding
temperature
these
here.
chicken pieces,
I
and
have
we are going to fry them up.
smeared it around my pan. Now I'm adding the chicken bites. So as I get these in, it does take a little bit to fry them up. While
as
that
we
chicken is
start
frying
on the
up,
orange
I'm going to
sauce,
start
I
making
need
the sauce. I start with
tablespoon of
1
cornstarch.
tablespoon of cornstarch, as you see here. And then we will go and add 2 tablespoons of rice wine
2
vinegar.
tablespoons of rice wine.
And this recipe, I wasn't sure about the rice wine vinegar. I wasn't sure, since it has more vinegar later on, you will see, but it calls for it, so I did not want to stray
cup
from
of
that
water.
recipe on the sauce. A 1/4 cup of water is next.
Teaspoon of sesame oil.
Then you will see that I add a teaspoon of sesame oil. If you are not fond of sesame oil, you may want to back off on this. We really like sesame oil, and so I do add the full teaspoon of that to the sauce. It is quite delicious in the Asian dishes.
And this
And
is a 1/2 teaspoon measuring, but
I think you'll enjoy it if you like orange chicken, because it is a normal ingredient for that. The next item is 3 teaspoons of soy sauce. I don't use soy sauce, however, I do use liquid aminos from Bragg's. I believe Azure Standard sells liquid aminos, coconut aminos, and I just prefer them by far over anything. It does not change this recipe by any means. It is just a healthier version, and you see I just showed you the Bragg's liquid aminos that I'm going to be adding. 3 teaspoons of that original, like I said, recipe calls for 3 teaspoons of soy sauce. The next ingredient after I add that is sugar, and it is a lot of sugar, is what I thought in the beginning. It is 10 tablespoons of sugar. I use Azure Standard organic cane sugar, and 10 tablespoons is a heaping 1/2 cup of sugar. And I just drop that in for that. The next ingredient is 10 tablespoons of white vinegar. I did miscount when I was adding vinegar, and it did not change the recipe. I didn't realize that until I was editing this video. I end up only adding 8 tablespoons of white vinegar. The recipe calls for 10, and I'm sure that is my squirrel ADHD moment. I have a tendency to miscount on occasions. I am dyslexic, and I do stray from things from time to time. So I'm just giving you that disclaimer that if you are looking for accuracy in some things, it's best to check the link and the recipe that I give in the description. I'm giving this a good stir now, and it calls for the orange zest of a whole orange. Well, I could not find any at the store, but I knew I had orange extract at home, and I thought, well, that's what I'll do. And I end up doing that. I use about 3 or 4 drops of this orange extract to get it to where I want it. I poke a hole in the top without peeling that cardboard cover off, so that I could control how much goes into my dish or into my my measuring spoon.
Or when I'm pouring it out.
And so I end up adding about 3
doesn't lob
drops
out
from that
accidentally.
orange
So we're
extract.
gonna
You
go
don't
1
need a
drop
lot
at a
because
time.
it is very,
Just a
very
little trick there
concentrated.
that you have.
Some
And
people
that
might
is
use
it to this
different
sauce.
things, but
Now,
I
need
decided to
wait
use this orange
until
extract,
my
and it
chicken is all
ended
fried
up
up,
not
and then
changing
I
it
will
at
add
all,
this
in my
chicken
opinion.
and
However,
finish off with
if I had
ginger,
an orange,
garlic, and
I would have
sweet pepper.
used all the orange zest
And
from
while I'm
that
waiting
orange.
on everything, I'm going to go ahead
And
get
so
the
now I'm doing the
finishing
finishing
toppings
ingredients. So once that
This
chicken
is,
is all cooked off, I
chopped
need
ginger,
to
so it's already been minced,
finish it
and I
in
need
the oil.
1.5 tablespoons.
So I am
of that.
putting
I'm
in
not going to use
1.5
quite as much as that since this has
tablespoons
already
of
been
ginger,
processed. I'm just
and it's
gonna
freshly
use,
minced. It is
probably
jar
1.5,
ginger is what I'm
almost 2
using. I don't use
teaspoons.
ginger
3
enough
teaspoons are in
to
a tablespoon.
keep it on hand. I
And so I'm
do
only going to use 2 to start.
have
Then I
ginger
need
on
garlic.
order, and I'm going to put that in my
need
freezer. But I didn't have it, and I do have this minced paste.
Garlic.
Then it calls for 2 cloves of garlic minced. As you can see, I am using store-bought minced garlic. I'm sure I got this at Sam's.
Probably
And I
be
just
adding
dish
more than
out
that.
probably
That
more
right
like
in
3
there.
cloves because we like our garlic.
And then
And I put that in that
half
dish.
of a teaspoon
And then
of
a
red
half a
pepper flakes to
teaspoon
give us
of
some
red
heat.
pepper flakes. Once that is all mixed together,
And I'm just going to eye that as well.
you will see
There we
me
go. So now everything is ready.
add it
I'm
to
gonna mix these
that
together.
hot oil in the
When
skillet.
it's-
And what I will
all
do
done,
then is I will quickly
When the chicken's
saute
done frying and we add
this
the
mixture
sauce, I'll
that I'm
bring you
mixing
back
up right
and
here
we'll show you
into
how
that
it's done.
skillet for about
Okay,
10
so
to
I've
15
added
seconds.
that
And I just want to
ginger,
get those
garlic,
flavors to release. I am quickly doing that
and
here.
hot pepper, 10 seconds.
And
Then
then
you
I need
add
to
your
add my the sauce recipe.
mixture here.
So once I get that all
And you're gonna
scraped
bring
in there,
that
get that
to
cornstarch
a
out,
boil.
I will need to bring this to a boil.
Gotta grab
And
my
I'm going
spatula here
to
'cause I
quickly
need that
whisk it until it
cornstarch
starts
out
to
of there.
thicken. Once it starts to thicken, we will be adding
that to a boil.
the chicken. And here you see it's coming to a boil
Go.
nicely. It's starting to
Add the
bubble,
heat.
and
It's
I'm
coming to
grabbing
a
that
boil.
chicken. I'm
Add
dumping
this
that chicken
back
back
to it.
in. And I'm going to give that a nice stir
Chicken
here.
and get
We're going to get
everything
all those
coated.
pieces nicely coated. And I am
Once everything
very
is coated,
pleased. The house is smelling wonderful at this point. And I will be honest,
remove
my
from
mouth
the heat.
is watering
So there it is.
as I'm watching this.
Orange chicken.
This recipe, my grandkids absolutely love orange chicken, and I wanted to try and make it at home. And so now here we are again, still stirring, just finishing up here. There
Now
we
I'm
go.
going
I
to
believe I'm
taste
done.
it for you.
So the best way I can serve this would probably be serve with rice and with a side of steamed broccoli. I am going to taste it now. I'm looking for and I grabbed that small piece.
Take a small piece here.
And I will tell you, it is phenomenal. It is a very good recipe, especially for people like me that can't have that extra gluten. I am happy that this recipe
I thought
works
it would
out
be
great
really too sweet
without
with all
that
that
flour. It is just a really good recipe.
It is
And
not
again, I
too
would,
sweet.
like I said, I'd serve with
It is
rice,
very
steamed
well
broccoli.
balanced. It is a
You can make your
very
rice
good
with bone
recipe.
broth and your
I
Instapot.
believe it is
It's just
probably
a
as
quick
close to Panda
recipe.
Express
I will be packaging
without
these
coating
up
your
for
chicken
lunch
that I'm
this
gonna
week.
get.
It won't last long.
Chicken
This
is
will
tender.
be a freezer meal for
Yes,
me
this is a
that I
keeper.
can
This is amazing.
split up between everything.
Okay, so the last
And now
recipe.
here we go with
is my
the
baked
final
macaroni and
recipe.
cheese.
This
gonna cut
is
off
my homemade
This
baked
edge here
macaroni
on
and
both
cheese.
ends.
There are
Now,
many
I'm not going to follow
recipes
this
out
recipe
there
either.
on the
It's just a guideline for me,
internet,
just so I can get the right amounts.
and this is
this
something I
is-
adapted from a recipe years
I don't know
ago.
how to say it, Gruyere
Not sure
from
where it
Switzerland.
came from, but I will give you
need
my best
to-
guess. Here I am grating up Gruyere cheese.
Great.
Don't know how to say it. Gruyere. I am grating
Grating
this
it
cheese up.
pretty
What I
heavy, like
need
in
is
large pieces,
a cup
I know it's gonna
of this cheese
melt down.
and a cup of
gonna all
the
mix
next
together.
cheese. So it totals 2 cups between these specialty cheeses. And I'm just grating it up. I purchased
This is my
these in the
niece's favorite
specialty
recipe.
cheese section of the grocery store.
She loves her Aunt
You can
Kim's
get them at Sam's,
baked
you can get
macaroni
them
and
at
cheese.
Costco, you can get them at
again,
just,
I'm
you know,
using
your local Kroger's.
Tinkiata.
I get these. I'm
Macaroni,
sure
so it's
Walmart
gluten-free.
has specialty cheese sections too. I never shop at Walmart.
I'm
just
lucky
refuse to
in
do that,
certain
and
things
that's a
I
personal
just can't
preference. I'm
have.
just throwing it out there
And then I'm lucky as in other
for a
things
variety
that
of
as long
reasons.
as
So
I
here
just
I am
have it in
finishing
small
up
amounts,
shredding that.
I'm okay.
So
So
year
barbecue
cheese.
sauces and ketchups, I
I
cannot
know
have
everybody's
at
laughing
all.
at me at my
None.
pronunciation. Don't know how to
Those are the
pronounce it.
ones that
I just know it's good cheese. The
do
next
not
cheese I
sit well
add
with me.
is Gouda
And,
cheese.
They are usually heavily
And I,
glued
again,
with
bought
heavily
this in the specialty
laden with
section at the
gluten.
grocery store.
A lot of people don't realize that.
And I will be cutting
So
off this
just
rind that's on it. There's a,
stay away
a
from those
hard
things.
rind around it that is
Now this is
for
Gouda.
packaging and when they're
I'm adding
making
Gouda
their
to
cheese.
this.
And I will show you
And
this
what
here
you'll
in a
see
minute.
with me
it is a
is
harder
I
cheese again.
use many
but
different
it
kinds
melts
of
beautifully.
cheeses.
And
When
here you
I
see
make
me
my
right here. I'm going to
baked
try and cut
macaroni
it
and
and
cheese.
with my cheese knife
off the
here,
rind on
and
this.
it is not getting the best of me, but I'm just
That
very
off of
careful
there.
to cut that off because the cheese does break because it is a hard cheese.
This is a harder cheese.
And you can see how that is like it broke off in a clump. So here I am
These pieces myself.
grating this cheese, and I will grade this whole block. It's very small, but it does give me a cup of shredded Gouda cheese.
And I need
This recipe
2 cups
is my
of
niece's
the-
favorite.
the
So Kelly, if
other
you're watching, I know
cheeses.
your mouth is watering at this.
So
and Aunt
that's
Kim
why I do
is enjoying
a
making
variety
this
of
recipe
cheeses
today.
when I make my baked macaroni and cheese. So I need a total of 2 cups of either
And I
Gruyere.
continue to shred,
Gouda,
trying to get or grate, I should say.
Edam
I
as well, or
continue to
Edam,
grate my cheese.
E-D-A-M. I have that as well.
This recipe takes a
I
total
may
of
have enough
6
of
cups
this
of
that
cheese.
I
So I want you to be aware it is
Won't
going
need
to
that.
be a
And then
lot
I'll
of
need 4
cheese. But
cups of
we love
sharp
cheese.
cheddar.
Who
Or
doesn't
cheddar
love
cheese.
And when you make baked macaroni and cheese, there are 2
But
mistakes
whatever I
people
need,
make.
I need a combination
One, it's not creamy enough.
of
You don't want a dry baked macaroni and
cups.
cheese. It
And this is
just
getting pretty hard
isn't
there, so I'm
pleasing
gonna take
in
that
the
off. See if I can get more of
in the
this
mouth. Dry macaroni and cheese is
down
not.
to
It's
that.
supposed to be creamy.
that hard piece there.
And that is the number 1 mistake people make. The second mistake people make when they make macaroni and cheese, baked macaroni and cheese, is they never make enough. It is the first dish to empty out,
I am a
and if
messy
it
cook,
is creamy
folks.
and it looks pleasing.
Just so you know.
And when you pull that spoon out,
don't
the
care if I mess up
creaminess
a lot
just
of
comes with
bowls.
that spoon.
I
Everybody
am just
loves
one.
it. So
There's a
this is
combination
my
of those 2
go-to
cheeses there.
recipe.
And I would say that is
So there
definitely
is the
about
2 cups of those mixed cheeses. You'll see me using my hands
this is gonna be
throughout this recipe. It is
spectacular.
for me and
And
my
I
husband.
need
It is for
4
me. I'm not
cups
sharing this with anybody. I do wash my hands. I don't want
cheddar.
anybody to jump
I'm
on
gonna
me
use
for
a
that. It is my
combination
kitchen,
of
my
whole wheat
rules. And I say that because I've had some pretty
and
interesting comments that I've had to
it is a combination
avoid
of
or tend to.
mild cheddar,
And I know everybody has
Sharp
their way
cheddar.
of cooking. I am very conscious
need
of that.
4
I just want
cups
to
of
throw
that.
that out.
So-
Anyway, here I am. I
and
am
it
now
says
adding
Mexican on it.
the
This is
extra
actually
4
what it is.
cups
There is
of
actually
shredded
some white cheese in there.
cheddar,
There we
sharp
go.
cheddar,
So
Monterey Jack, Colby, and there is
That
some
is
white
probably
cheese in there,
about
and
4
that
cups, maybe a
is
little
a
bit
Mexican
more.
cheese. It
is
just
a lot of
happens to
cheese.
be in this mixture.
there we go.
So that white cheese is in there, probably a queso cheese. It's a melty cheese. Here I am mixing all of those
There
6 cups together,
So I've got 6 cups
and
of
we will
cheese total
get
here.
started next.
Now,
on
The next thing I need to do is
getting
while I'm
the
cooking
milk
pasta, that's
in the
exactly what
pan,
I'm doing
and
right
or
now,
the
is
we're
cooking
going to
the
start
pasta.
through the butter and the flour in the
I'm
pan
going to tidy up here so I
and
can
get
ready
these
for the
things
next.
melted together.
So now I've
So
cooked
here I am
macaroni, and I need to
melting that
melt
butter
6
in the pan,
tablespoons
and that
of
is
butter,
6 tablespoons
which I'm doing
of
right now.
butter. It calls for unsalted butter. I just can't tell you what I used. I
This all
probably
melted, and
used
then we're gonna
whatever was
add
in my
the
refrigerator, and it was a
thickener.
red label. I'm guessing it was salted.
Okay,
So
the
it is
butter
now melted.
melted.
So we
Now
will
need to
now
add
add
the flour.
a 1/3 cup of flour. I am using my gluten-free 1-to-1 mixing flour. You can add regular all-purpose flour. It is very interchangeable here. So I mix this up, and like I said, I'm creating this paste here so I can start adding the milk.
We are going to whisk the.
And this butter has come to a boil. It's a nice paste. And here we are starting to add 3 cups of whole milk plus 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Sorry that I've blocked your view, but I am quickly trying to get these mixed in here and to create that creamy base that you need for the baked macaroni and cheese, and before I add the cheese to it. So I'm quickly whisking at the same time. We don't want it to scorch or stick, and it just takes a little bit for me to get all this added. I'm turning, trying to help you see what I'm doing, but I am continuing to stir the whole time. I am whisking as I go. And as I finish up, I grab my other tool. Again, Pampered Chef, love that tool. It's a great scraper, and it also is like a spoon, has holes in it. It's Pampered Chef tool. And back to whisking again, and we need to bring this to a bubbly boil. I don't want it to boil, but I do want it to start to bubble. So then I can add up start adding those cups of cheese. And here we are to that point. You can see the color has changed a little bit. I am adding some salt and pepper at this point. And again, that is just to taste. And I probably add a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. I'm not real sure. I just throw it in. And we begin to whisk it. We whisk all those things together.
Okay, so this is
and
nice
now we are going to start
thick.
adding that cheese.
And now I need to start adding
I take
cheese.
handfuls of cheese,
So I'm adding
and I mix it in. It melts very quick. You do not want to mess
2
around.
cups of
You want to
cheese. Yes, I'm
continue
using my
to
hand.
stir while this is
for
melting
me and
down.
my husband, so I'm really
And
just
I add
worried.
2 cups at a time as I mix it up.
And I'm going to
And
melt
you can
this
see it
cheese
just
down.
instantly melts away. And as
I'm going
it gets
to
very thick,
reserve
very
2
quick, so you
cups
don't want to waste any time. And maybe a
of
rubber
this
scraper would be
cheese.
the better tool here. With this, I just don't want
layer.
it to stick to the bottom. So I am adding the next 2 cups of the shredded cheese. We will mix that in
Continue to whisk
and get that
until I have
all
2
melted down,
cups in here.
and I reserve the last 2
go.
cups for layering when I get this into my pan.
This is going to be very thick.
Now this
And this
recipe
is quick
will
work.
be put into a 4-quart casserole,
If my
and
niece is
it needs to
watching
be
this,
fairly
Kelly,
deep because you are going to
I
have
know that your mouth
part
is watering.
on the first layer, a layer of cheese, and then the
Okay,
remainder
so I have
of
this
the macaroni
mixed up.
on the
Now
top.
I need to add
So this is all melted
my
now. Here I
macaroni
am
that's
coming
already
in
been
with that
cooked.
macaroni. I have pre-boiled it. It is my tinkyata macaronis. It was coated
mix
in
that
olive
up in
oil
there.
so it didn't stick. And now I'm getting that all mixed up. And if you would
know, the
not
one
want to bake
thing
the macaroni,
that people do
you are
not
perfectly
do
good
correctly
to
with
eat
baked
this
macaroni and
right
cheese
here and now.
is one, they don't
It
get a
is
creamy
just
enough.
not
It's
finished
always
for me until it's
dry.
baked. But this
2,
macaroni right here
don't make
is
enough of it.
my kids' favorite. I have made
first
homemade
thing
macaroni and
usually to
cheese
go.
for years. and
there
years
it
and
is.
years.
It
And
is
the
mixed
box
up.
kind
Now I
is
need
just
to
not
start
something that they
panning it up for
prefer.
baking.
They loved my
I have a
creamy
very
macaroni
small
and cheese.
kitchen, and it is hard to get you to see
As an
everything.
alternative, if you don't
So
want
I
to
hope this
use
is a
all
good
those
angle
specialty
for you.
cheeses, Velveeta cheese is an option as
It's
well.
not.
I used that when the kids
So
were
now we
younger,
need to put
and they
half of
preferred that
that
too. And so now we're going to start dishing this up into a very
into the
well
pan.
greased
And I am going to
casserole.
use
This is
measuring
a
cup on this.
Princess House
Just
casserole
because the
dish. I don't
pan
even
is
know
hard
if they
for me to
make this
handle
stuff
still.
anymore, but
With
this
back.
Princess House casserole has been with me for years, and
I've turned the
it
heat
still
off
looks
on
like
that,
the
so I don't
first
have to
day I
worry
bought it.
about
It is a beautiful casserole.
scorching
But
or burning.
anyway, I'm dishing up the majority of this macaroni and
What's that?
cheese into the bottom of this casserole. Once I get that, then I come in with
rest
the
of the cheese.
extra or the last
I'm
2
going to
cups of
sprinkle it
cheese, and I'm
over
going to
this
spread
layer.
that over that layer and cover
And make
that
sure you
all
grease
completely
your pan well, people.
nicely so
This
it
is
goes
cheese.
over the whole bottom layer. Finish that
It
up,
will
and I just
very-
spread that out.
Very sticky.
And then I come
Underside
in
your pan,
with
and you don't want
the
it
rest
to
of that macaroni and cheese
work
that
any
is
harder
in the
than you need
pan.
to.
And I'm just
you're
going to
gonna put
dish
the
that
next
in the
layer
center of it. And I
of
I do try and spread it out a little bit. I probably put too much in the bottom, but it did not ruin
is a
it. It ended up being just
casserole.
fine.
don't even
And it
know
looks kind of like a, I don't know,
If they make
like
these
a topping, I
casseroles, it's
guess,
called Princess
if you
House.
will. I'm not
I
quite
just
sure. It
don't
just, but it's just in the center. It doesn't go to the edges, so you have that nice bubbly cheese around the outside there,
I gotta get this out.
and as it bakes, it kind of encases that center macaroni.
So far, I'm just gonna set it right
The
there.
next piece
able to
that I need
lift
to
this
add
flat.
is
Take this.
I do spread it out a little bit.
Smear
I want
this
to.
around
I'm
like
trying to
this.
spread it
Now,
out just to the
the
edges
next
on
layer of
everywhere,
cheese.
just so I can
Yes,
have
more
just a
cheese,
little
people.
bit of an edge of cheese around the whole
Who wants
center.
macaroni and cheese without cheese?
The next thing
there.
that I need to add
I don't
is
care what kind of cheese
smoked paprika
you use, whether
and
it be
Parmesan
freshly
cheese.
grated,
It does
it
not
can be
matter
the
what
kind
kind
you bought in
of
the store,
smoked
or you can use
paprika
the
or
kind in the green
Parmesan
can.
cheese you add.
I'm gonna tell you about
I am
this.
using
Normally,
Parmesan
I don't
cheese in
have
the
this.
green can,
My
as you see,
grandkids love this
because
stuff.
my fresh that I thought I had,
of it,
I didn't have. And the
this
kind
dish
that's
is
pre-shredded
not
that I
good
bought at
without it.
Sam's
I
was
went to
not
grab
usable. So that
my
went into the dumpster.
grated
I hate
Parmesan
when I
cheese.
waste.
One,
But
I
it was
discovered
just
the
a
black
little
was
bit left,
gone,
got
and
shoved
two,
to the back of the
kind that's already
fridge, did not
pre-grated
see
that I
it,
get
used
from, like,
the
Costco or Sam's.
the
It was
other
not fit to
first.
eat.
I don't know how
Apparently,
that
it shoved in
happened,
the
but
back of the
it does
fridge,
happen.
and
Once in a
I missed
while,
it, and
I use
apparently
things out of
worked for
order.
something else.
And
you
so
know how
I
that goes. So it ended up
put that on there. You
in the
need that
trash.
cheese on top to make that nice,
So,
crusty,
here it
bubbly
is.
top.
You would normally
And
put
then I also
panko
sprinkle
breadcrumbs with
smoked
1.5
paprika over the top.
So
It's a
you
beautiful
would normally
color.
put 1.5
It
cups. of
obviously
panko
it doesn't give it a
breadcrumbs
lot of taste,
on the
but
top of
it
this,
does
or,
do that.
Excuse me, in a bowl. With
The
4
recipe
tablespoons of
calls
melted butter.
for
Mix that together,
1.5
and
panko
smoked paprika
crumbs
in that.
with 4 tablespoons of
it
melted
would
butter
create
mixed
your
together
crusty
to make a
top.
crumbly topping
Now, you can
with
also
half a cup of
use
Parmesan
Ritz
shredded cheese
crackers
and a 4th
if
teaspoon
you're
smoked
open
paprika.
to that.
Well,
You can
I'm
use
the
Ritz
gluten person,
crackers
and so
and
I'm not going to be
crumble them up
adding
with butter
it
and put them
to
on there.
this
I am not
recipe.
putting either
Other
on
here I am
because
sprinkling the smoked paprika
I
over
am going to want
this
to
dish
store this
so I can have that
in
flavor without
fridge.
the panko crumbs. Another option, if you don't have panko, is take a sleeve of Ritz
and I don't
crackers,
want those
crunch
breadcrumbs
them
on
up,
the top. I want it to
use
remain
the
like
4
this, and
tablespoons
this
of
is
butter
smoked-
melted, make that
smoked
crumbly
paprika that
topping
I'm
with
adding.
your half a cup of Parmesan shredded cheese,
So,
and
now
use that as a
it's
topping.
all ready for the oven.
That is probably what my
Ready to
family
bake it.
likes the best. But since it's just for me
350 degrees, we're
and
gonna
my
put it in the
husband,
oven,
he's
350
okay with me
degrees.
not doing that
And
on this
we
one.
will bake
And
this
I don't need that
for-
extra gluten.
Oh
Everything
my,
in here
how
so
long
far
do
is
I
is
bake?
gluten free at this point.
think I
So I want to
forgot.
keep this
I
dish
need to look
gluten
at
free for me.
my notes just so I make
And
sure.
now we are ready to bake it at 350 degrees.
minutes.
And we are going to bake this for 30 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to put
And
this
I'm
in.
getting ready to put it in the oven here. And here is the end of my baking
2
day.
hours, we
I have
made
several items that I've baked today, and I'll be able to use these for this week as well as several meals to come. It is a one-day baking so that I can have options and not have to eat the same thing all week long for 4 or 5 days. We all need variety in life. So you see my Cowboy Caviar in the front.
So here is
And over here to the left is my baked oatmeal. Then I have the beans.
This is the black beans.
And I
That's
will
my
link all these
daughter-in-law's
recipes.
recipe.
And then
This
the
is the
Panda
Panda
Express
Express
copycat
recipe,
orange chicken. The only thing that's missing from this picture is the final
The one item that's not here, it's still in
look
the oven.
at that
is
baked
the
macaroni and cheese
and I will show
when it
you
comes out of
that
the
when
oven.
It is all
And
done.
here it comes.
And here is
there it
the final
is,
dish,
the baked macaroni and cheese. Look at how delicious that is.
The recipe
It
will be
is
linked
phenomenal.
Down in the
I cut a
description,
piece of my
or I
baked
will type it
oatmeal out of
and
the
put it in
back
the
so you could
description.
see it
I
better.
also wanted to show
And the
you, this
reason
is
I
the
did
baked
that
macaroni
is so
and
you could
cheese.
see that it is cake-like. It is
So
not
baked
that
oatmeal, baked
wet
macaroni and cheese.
oatmeal texture
And I
that
wanted
the
to
other
show you
baked
that
oatmeal
cake.
that I
Or this
make,
oatmeal.
which I
It's more
absolutely
cake-like.
love,
This one is. The other one isn't
this
so
is a
much like this,
cake-like
but
oatmeal.
this
You
one
can pick
you
up that
can
piece and
actually
eat it.
pick up
It is phenomenal.
like a
Again,
piece of cake, and I wanna show
the
you
recipe
this.
is in my video, as well
right
as I will
out.
try and type it up and get it linked in the description as well. And
show
here
you.
I am pulling
So
this
there it
piece
is.
out, and I'm bringing
See?
it into the camera so you can
See
see.
how it
Look at
is?
that, how nice
It is
that is.
absolutely delicious.
It
doesn't
is
have
so
that
good. You
oatmeal
can pour milk
texture
over
that-
it, eat it
that
with
so many
fruit,
people don't
syrup
like.
over it.
It is definitely
Our family
cake-like.
loves it.
And you can serve it with fruit. You can
So
pour
I just
milk
want to
over it,
thank
or
you
can just
again
eat it
for
just
joining
like
me
that.
today
And that's the way I
on
prefer
my
it.
cooking day, and I
Macaroni and
appreciate
cheese.
that you
Yeah,
find
one of our favorite dishes.
time in your day
Need let
to
this set
join
for a little bit before
me
I can
on
dish
this
it out.
cooking adventure and
so
this
that
YouTube
completes
adventure.
My cooking day.
My goal by the end of the
and
year is to have
it's
1,000
been about 3.5
subscribers, and
hours
I
in the
want
kitchen,
to welcome
and as you
and
can
thank
see,
each
I-
and
I
every
did
one
quite
of
a
you,
bit
and
today.
welcome all the new subscribers
I
that
appreciate each
I
and every one of
have
you. Thank you for joining
received
in.
this past
It
month,
would be a great
and
time
I
to like and
appreciate
subscribe
each
if
and
you
every
would
one
like
of
to
you.
see future videos like
If
this.
there's
I try to get as
one
many
thing
out
I
as
can say
can. I know
is
canning
I
season
am
is pretty
blessed
heavy, so I've
and
been doing
very
a lot of canning
thankful
videos, so hopefully
for
I'll
each
be
and
able
every
to
one
get
of
more
you.
cooking videos in, as well as
I look
other
forward
little
to future
tidbits of
videos,
time
and
for
I'm
you.
sorry I didn't make it and end up getting
So
to
everyone,
the
please
canned
have a
chicken
great
legs.
week.
That will
Be
be in
safe,
another
and as
video
always, be
real
blessed
soon.
and
So
laugh as much
like,
as you breathe.
subscribe,
Thanks everyone.
follow.
Have a great day.
Again, as always, be blessed and laugh as much as you breathe. Have a great day.